Hello, I'm Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Goodine, pastor of Church on Wheels Spoken Word out of Deltona, Florida. And this is another edition of Bible Study 2024. Thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Like us on YouTube at Pastor Jeffrey Goodine. Subscribe and hit the bell to be notified. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on our Facebook page at Church on Wheels, Let the Good News Roll. That is our group page. Facebook Live, Jeffrey Goodine. Twitter, which is now X, at Goodine Jeffrey. Instagram, Goodine Jeffrey. And Clubhouse, Church on Wheels Ministry. We are continuing our study into the power of God's names. Now, tonight we got a sort of a hard name to pronounce, but really it's not that hard per se. But it is a little difficult at the beginning. It's a little difficult at the beginning, but we will give it a shot. Jehovah Mekadiskim. Jehovah Mekadiskim. That's my best English pronunciation of it. Now, if there is, and again, I don't profess to be the best speaker per se, but that's my best rendition of it. Jehovah Mekadishkim, the Lord who sanctifies. Now, this really is based off of the book of Leviticus. And if you look in your Bibles, you will see that Leviticus comes right between Exodus and Numbers. Now, the significance of this is, think of it this way. God's chosen people, now in Exodus, He's taking them to the promised land. But as He gets to the promised land, He's telling them how to live with Him, how to communicate with Him, how to have a relationship with Him that is different from the people in the land that you're going to. Now, because we are going into this new land, or however you want to look at it, what is it that we have to do to make us different? So what it called the Levitical laws. If you want to know, when you read the book of Leviticus, there are some laws and things that how the people are to live. There are laws on what they can eat and how they're to live and how they're to worship and even so down into how they're supposed to live in the village or in the houses or whatever you want to call it. When you read Leviticus, you'll see that all of the laws and things, and this was to set the people apart from everybody else. Well, that's the same thing today. As a Christian, want to be Christian, somebody say you should be a Christian, you are set aside as a Christ follower. You are set aside. You are to be different. And so Levitical laws is that there are certain things that the people, once they get to the promised land or while they're living in the promised land, there are certain laws and certain things that are laid out for them to have a relationship with God that is different from the other people. So that is kind of where the foundation of it is that He sanctifies, or He set aside, or He sets apart His people in His name, to set aside in His name I don't know why anybody calling me on Bible study. They're set aside for the relationship. And so what is it about the relationship that makes us different? It's because we are abiding by his laws and his rules. And so that's what Leviticus, or the book of Leviticus, is really about. Setting aside his people once they get to the promised land, how to live in the promised land, how to live differently than everyone else. And it's based on the book of Leviticus. I forgot. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse. Send me an email, pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. That's pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. And I will add you to the list, and you will get a copy of the handout. And with the copy of the handout, you can follow along with us in Bible study. That's pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. I'll add you to the list, and you will get a copy of the handout so that you could follow along with us in Bible study. So tonight, Jehovah Mekadishkem. The foundation of this is the Lord who sanctifies. And it is based on, the foundation of it is really in Exodus, but the way to live in is in the book of Leviticus. Where when you read the book of Leviticus, you're going to see there were some strict things that the people had to do. Some laws called Levitical laws. So, in the handout for tonight, I say Leviticus is one of the most important books in the Bible. It's where God clearly calls out his people to be set apart from the rest. Much of what happens in the book of Hebrews is based on God's instructions in Leviticus. True worship includes sanctification. And sanctification, the Lord who sanctifies, is set apart. But you're set apart by God, not set apart in your own way, per se. So, how do we do this when we are God's followers? How do we do that today as Christ's followers? Well, we got to be different. We got to be different. We got to be different. We got to act different. Walk different, talk different than everybody else. So that you be set aside. So by being set aside from God, set aside, that you will be consider yourself one of his. Now, delivered for destiny. Now, all of us have a destiny. All of us have a destiny. Now, again, you must figure out what it is that you're supposed to do. But I'm going to tell you it is, whatever it is you're supposed to do. But you've got to set yourself apart from everybody else. There's just something different about you. Now look, I'm going to tell you this. It's hard to be in this world and live separately. Because remember, we got to go to grocery stores, stoplights, and gas stations. Okay? Like everybody else. But there's something different. And going to church on Sunday, or going to Bible study, or doing the week, church on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whichever day you go to church, singing in the choir, usher board, and all of that, it's something different. It's not just that. It's something different. So when he was talking about the people coming into the land, there's something different about them. They're not going to come in contact with other people. But it's something different about his people that are set apart. They have a covenant. They have a covering. There's a covenant, a protection and provision. that they have for those that are set aside. So, tonight, delivered for destiny. Delivered for destiny. The foundation of this book is in Exodus. Remember, they have been promised the moving to the promised land. Let my people go, and he's taking the people to the promised land. So Leviticus, really its foundation is in Exodus, because those were his people, and he's moving them to a promised land. Now, Leviticus is really the book of life, is what the laws they were to follow when they get into this new land, so that he would know that you are my people. So that's something different. So that's what Leviticus is. The Lord sanctified them. And here God sets out his desires and plans for his people to live in continual relationship with him. This is what he did for the people. Precepts and principles about how followers are to fellowship with him. So when you read the book of Leviticus, you'll see that there are certain things that the people were to do and how they were to live. Well, the same way it is now. There's certain things or certain ways that we are as Christ followers. The more we involve ourselves in with Christ, the less we do those things. Now look, I'm not saying that you don't go to gas stations, Starlight's gas station. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's something different. There should be something different about a Christ follower. There should be something different. You can't live in the world and then be a Christ follower also. The two don't mix. The two just don't mix. So we are to align our lives in proper connection to him, which requires an understanding of and separation to his holiness through the process of sanctification. Now, this is what he said. He set them apart. He said, he was telling the people, this is how you're going to live in this new land. So that when they see you, they will know who you are. They will know that you're different. There's something different about you. There's something different about you. As they say, there's something different about you. I can't really put my hand on a little bit. I really can't tell you, but there's something different about you. Then they start asking questions, did you lose weight? Did you color your hair? All kinds of stuff. Are you working out? They just notice that there's something different. And so in this new land, in this promised land, this is what the book of Leviticus does. God sanctified his people. He set them apart. And there were laws that they had to live by to make them different. Just like today, there are certain Christian laws that we have to live by to make us different. Now, he wants to reveal himself, his glory, and his holiness, which is the sacredness, through our lives. So he wanted to make sure that when the people came in contact with his chosen people, they would see God through them. So when people look at your life, are they seeing, Christ through your life? What do they see when they see you and your life? What is it that they see? Are they seeing a Christ follower? Or are they seeing a world follower? It's up to you. You got to make that decision. Well, that's what God does. He sanctifies. He sets you apart. You're set apart. And that's what Jehovah Mekadishkim, Lord who sanctifies. That sets us apart. So that we will know that when they see us, they will see Christ. They will see his glory. They will see his holiness, his sacredness in our lives. Now, if he look at you and he sees the world, then there's no way for you to be separate. You just kind of blend in, as they say. But you're supposed to stand out. And that's what the Levitical laws did, was to make sure that the people stand out from everybody else. Sanctifies them. Sets them apart from everybody else. Jehovah Mekadishkim. Now, if you think about it, throughout Leviticus, when you study the book of Leviticus, God is getting his children ready for their destiny by instructing them how to worship and walk with him once they get there. So you see, when we are talking to converts, new converts and things of that nature, we talk to them about being a Christ follower. And there's something, the more you follow Christ, the more you give up those things of the world. All I can do is talk to you and tell you about Jesus Christ. I can't talk to you about being an alcoholic. I've never been an alcoholic. I can't talk to you about being a drug addict. I've never been a drug addict. I don't know those things. But what I do know is that once you start following him, there's a change in your life. You're going to start doing things that are different from the world. Now, just because you live anywhere, like I say, I can go to grocery store, stoplights, gas station. I go to those places. You can't kind of not do it. You just kind of can't not do it. But there's something different. There's something different. And I've been places, without my t-shirt and stuff on, just play, and people go, something about you. Then they ask, are you a pastor? And then I usually, my response is, what gave it away? What gave it away?
All the crosses around
your neck. Yeah, and then they say, it's just something about you. It's just something about you. And I tell them, yes, I am, And then I tell them about the church and I give them a card and you then you never know. They might need that card. They might use that card one day. You never know. But think of it this way. In the book of Leviticus, he laid out the common, the profane, and the sacred. The common, the profane, and the sacred. Those three words kind of encapsulate the book of Leviticus and encapsulate our lives. Because in our lives, we have the common, we have the profane, and we have the sacred. Now, think about it this way. And I put here all things, actions, and people fall into one of these categories. Now, either you talk all you want. You fall into one of these categories. You're either going to be common, profane, or sacred. Your thoughts are going to be common, profane, or sacred. Your actions are going to be common, profane, or sacred. And so the Leviticus law kind of distinguishes. When you read the book of Leviticus, you'll see how he distinguishes his people. That if you live this way, you will have a better relationship with me. So he sets them apart. Common, which is regular and ordinary, exists for the general welfare and general good. And I put here remain common until made either profane or sacred. That's the neutral zone. So we all kind of in the neutral zone. You think about it. When a child is born into the neutral zone. It is when he gets older and his environment and his upbringing now dictates. But at the beginning, a child is a child. They don't learn those behaviors and things until they start growing up, and those are instilled in them. But, it is what it is. So, common, regular, and ordinary exists for the general welfare and general good, remains common until made either profane or sacred. The profane is polluted, defiled, or contaminated. Destructive actions, attitudes, and people. Yes, we do. We have done, if not, we're probably still doing some destructive actions. That's profane. Our attitudes, destructive attitudes, we know a lot of people like that. Profane. Then you have the sacred, which is special to God and reflects His glory. That's God's presence, sanctions, purposes. And things that are special to God, the Sabbath day, the sabbatical year, which is the 7th year, and then the year of Jubilee, which is every 49 years. And do you know in the year of Jubilee that you ought to forgive all debts? All debts. But, you know, in America, you know, whatever they say. So we notice in those things that are specified. Now, which life are you living? Is your life common, profane, or sacred? I'm going to tell you this. We are common. We have done profane things, if we're not doing them now. And we have some things that are sacred to us. Now, everybody has something sacred, something they hold sacred. All of us got that. So, when we talk about in the book of Leviticus, the common and the profane and all of the, and the sacred, all of this is laid out by Jehovah Mekadishkim. It's all laid out. Now in Leviticus chapter 20, Leviticus chapter 20, verse 7 and 8 says, consecrate yourselves, and I'm reading from the NIV. Consecrate yourselves and be holy, because I am the Lord your God. Keep my decrees and follow them. I am the Lord who makes you holy. Here he's telling the people that they're to consecrate themselves and be holy. That we ought to consecrate ourselves. And Jehovah Mekadishkim, now you'll see the shortened version, which is Jehovah Mekadish, or Mekadesh, or however you want to, the best English pronunciation that I can come up with. Jehovah Mekadish, that is the shortened version of Jehovah Mekadishkim, the Lord who sanctifies. Now I put here in the handout Kadesh, which means to sanctify. Appears hundreds of times, but the compound connection with Jehovah appears only twice. That is in this one, in Leviticus chapter 20, and then Exodus chapter 31, verse 13. It is life-giving name that infuses power into our lives when we receive by faith everything He seeks to do in and through us. It sanctifies an action done to us, God's action of sanctifying us. Here is God's thing of sanctifying us. But first thing we got to do is consecrate ourselves to Him. Consecrate ourselves to Him. So you see, He's setting them apart. He wants His glory to shine through us, through you, through me, through them. He wants His glory and things to shine through us. When people see us, they ought to see Him. And that's what He wants. That's what sanctifying. He's setting us apart. But there's certain things that we have to do. Same thing He did with them in the Leviticus law. Is that there are certain things that they have to do in a certain way they got to live so that when the people see them, they will see God. They will see God. And if we look in Leviticus chapter 20, verses 22, to 26. It says, keep all my decrees and laws and follow them, so that the land where I'm bringing you to live may not vomit you out. You must not live according to the customs of the nations I am going to drive out before you, because they did all these things. I abhorred them. But I said to you, you will possess their land. I will give it to you as an inheritance, a land flowing with milk and honey. I am the Lord your God, who has set you apart from the nations. You must therefore make a distinction between clean and unclean animals, and between unclean and clean birds. Do not defile yourself by any animal or bird or anything that moves along the ground, those that I have set apart as unclean for you. You are to be holy to me, because I, the Lord, am holy, and I have set you apart from the nations to be my own. Now here he's making it clear that there are certain things that they have to do, because the laws call what's clean and unclean. Now, there's going to be a lot of contradictions per se, or what people are claiming. Now some are going to say that, well, the Levitical law, that's the Old Testament. So we don't really have to live by the old, now that we're under the New Testament. And then some people, we hold on to, it becomes, well, it becomes what best fit that I can use to declare what I'm doing is all right. That's the best I can look at it. Is that I use it to my advantage, to make it look like, like I'm living the life. And you'll see a lot of things in Leviticus that don't fit today, that fit during that time. Clean and unclean, and actions and all of those things people use to say that I'm spiritual and I'm biblical and all of that. I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. Okay? I mean, when you read Leviticus, you'll see some strict laws. You'll see some strict laws. And some of those laws, we can go to the extreme with it. I mean, it's okay. It's in the Bible. But he's telling you that these are the people that, his people, they're set aside. And these are the laws they must live under to be set aside. He sanctified them. He set them aside. So those are the laws. Yeah. Now, sanctification is the process of God setting us apart from sin and unrighteousness, and to his person and purposes. That's sanctification, being sanctified, set apart. Process of God setting us apart from sin and unrighteousness, and to his person and purposes. We are to maintain uniqueness to retain his protection and provision. So if God sanctifies us, just like he did those people, if he sanctifies them, then there is a covenant of protection and provision for the people. Now, yes, there is, today as a Christ follower, there is a protection and a provision. But the world also has what we would call a protection and a provision. And which one do you like? Now, you will be like the world, and you'll be like everybody else, as they say. But to be a Christ follower, something different. There's a different covering. There's a different protection. There's a different provision. It's different because he sanctifies us. And he wants something, he wants to do stuff through us. Now, how do we do that? Sanctified means that we have to be set apart. We have to leave from the common to the sacred. You must leave from the common, skip the profane, or if you want to, you can go through the profane, which of all of us have done, to get to the sacredness. Now, think about it. The chosen people that in Exodus, they were the common people, then they were profane, and then sacred. And then they used to take that whole process, the whole thing, to go from sacred, then they would turn their backs on him, and then they would become common. Then they would do the profane thing, which is to follow after other gods, and then they call out for cry, and then they become sacred to him again. And that's the process of what it is that we do. Now, sanctification begins from within. Now, how else do we do something if it don't start with us? How do we understand? Well, I got something to tell you. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 23 says, "May God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ." Now remember, he's coming back for his church that has a spot or wrinkle. So that means that you cannot be profane. In fact, you got to be more than common. You have to be sacred. So you set apart. He's coming back. You know he's coming back. You know he's coming back. Everybody out there can tell you, even the ones that don't go to church, even the ones that don't believe, they tell you he's coming back. They know it. Everybody says it. He's coming back. Well, if you know he's coming back, then you need to get ready. You need to be set aside and be ready for him to come when he comes back. If you are to be his people. Now here Paul is writing to the church at Thessalonica. And he's saying, "May God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through." Sanctify you. That means set you apart. And he's saying, now look what he's saying. May your spirit, your soul, and your body be kept blameless at the coming. Make sure you set yourself aside. Are you setting yourselves aside? Are we leaving the common and going to sacred? Or are we leaving the common and going to the profane? Destructive actions, destructive thoughts, a destructive person. Profane. That's not going to get you anywhere. Now, sanctification begins from within. God's transformation begins inwardly in our spirits, and then proceed out from there to our souls, and finally to our bodies. So you see here in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 23, Paul is saying to the church, "May God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through." Now I know he said your whole spirit, your soul, and your body be kept blameless. So you see, that sanctification, the transformation must start inside, not outward. It must start inside, so it would change the inside so that you change the outside. Well, what we do, unfortunately sometimes, is we clean up the outside, but the inside's still dirty. Like a cup. Now we've all, done something, been to the cupboard, dishwasher, whatever. We get a cup, pick it up, look at it, looks clean. And then when we go to use it, we look down in there and there's some residue still in there. So we've been fooled. We looked at the outside. We said that the outside was clean, so it must be clean. But then when we go to use it, we find out that the inside is still dirty. So we can't use it. So what happens if Christ comes back and he said your body looks clean, but then when he grabs you and then he looks at your soul and he looks at your spirit and he sees that it is not clean, then he's going to discard you. He's going to discard you. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. So Paul is stressing here. And what he's saying is that they are to align their spirits with the Spirit of Christ. We are to align our spirits with the Spirit of Christ. Well, in Leviticus, out of Exodus, they are to align their spirits with the Spirit of God. So they can be different. They can be seen different. So that's what Paul is saying to them, to align your spirit with the Spirit of Christ. Sanctify. Set apart. Now, if we claim that we are Christ-like, that's just the outside. Those are words. Does our life live up to that? And if we claim it lives up to our eyes, but what happens to Jesus Christ? What if your life, no matter how, I don't know, how, what we call it, how good you think you're living, that may not live up to Christ's standards. Because the more he see you, the more he see the world. And that's not what he said. He does not want us. If we align our spirit with that of Christ, then it works from the inside. Our spirit, our soul, and our bodies will all be transformed. But first, it must start in our spirit and work itself out. God does not sanctify until we consecrate ourselves to him. Now, when we look back at verse 7, when we go back to verse 7, we see that he said, consecrate yourselves. Now, how do we, what we call consecrating, okay? Consecrate yourselves and be holy. Means you got to change the way you live. Change your thought process. Change all of the stuff about you. And therefore, he will sanctify us. How's he going to sanctify somebody that's not one of his? That doesn't even believe in him. Don't even try to believe in him. How can he sanctify you? How can he set you apart from the world? Remember, this is what he did to them coming in Exodus. He wanted them to be, because he knew they were going into a land that he was going to give to them, but they were going to meet other people in these lands. So what is it that when they see you, do they see anything different? Do they see Christ or do they see the world? Do they see more Christ or do they see more world? That's something that you have to come up with. I don't know. Our consecration comes before his sanctification, which is that we have to consecrate ourselves to him before we become sanctified. We have to consecrate ourselves to him before we become sanctified. Now, the concept of consecration, if you think about it for a moment, what is it really in our, I just had this. Why is it not? There it is. How do we consecrate ourselves? How do we do that? And it says in Hebrews chapter 10, says, and by that will we have been made holy through the sacrifice of the body of Jesus Christ. The sacrifice of the body of Jesus Christ. Now we're into the Easter season now. And this is the sacrifice. That our belief in Jesus Christ as a Christ follower begins to consecrate ourselves to God so that he can set us aside. But if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, I don't know what to tell you. There's just no way. There's just no way. Now look, hold it. Let me back up here. People have all kind of ways of saying how to get to heaven, how to be this and how to be that. There's a whole lot of ways. Listen, the Bible says, Jesus said the only way to get to the Father is through him. Now, if you know another way, then by all means, you go do that. How does that work out for you?
Good luck.
Yeah. How is that going to work out for you? But I'm telling you now, in order to consecrate ourselves, to be sanctified, it is done through believing in Jesus Christ. The birth, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The sacrifice of him. Begin to consecrate ourselves to God so that he can sanctify us. So he can set us apart. Now, every provision has been made for us to live out the full and abundant life. Everything in our plan has already been laid out for us. All we have to do is walk that road. All the provision, as I said, everything for you to do, everything has been already laid out for you. All you got to do is follow it and accept it. All the provision to live out our full and abundant life. Now it didn't say, the biggest house or the fanciest car, the nicest clothes. It didn't say that. It said the full and abundant life. See, with Christ, you got more than what others had. But if you start comparing our worldly material things, then no, I don't have it. Me compared to somebody else, they got a bigger house, fancier cars, more money in the bank, and all that other kind of stuff. If I compare myself to them, then I'm short. But then if I compare myself to somebody that doesn't have what I have, then I consider myself big. That's not going to get me anything. It is my life and my consecration to be sanctified. My consecration to God so he can sanctify me. As we continue to align our heart, thoughts, and actions with his word, God himself will remove the desire for the world that is in us. That's a big statement. Come on now, look. Let's just be honest, y'all. We always like the big house. We like a whole lot of money. We like fancy cars. We like all what we call the good life. All of us want to live the life of Riley. Whoever this Riley person is, they live in the good life, as we would say. And we all want to live that in this world. But the more that we want to live like Riley, the more we want to have more. Riley just keeps having more. Because right now, let's just say right now, today, we live in the life of Riley. Okay? Let's just say we live in the life of Riley. And then we go look and see somebody else. They're living better than us. And the first thing we say is, they live in the life of Riley. Well, wait a minute. Well, I thought just now that we were living the life of Riley. But then we see somebody else, what they got, and now we say that they live in the life of Riley, and what we're doing is now second class. And so now we want to have more. We want to be like them. But once we align our hearts and our thoughts, which is what he was trying to get the people in the book of Leviticus, align your hearts and your thoughts and your actions with God, and you won't want to be like anybody else. This is what he was saying to them. In the laws are so that they will not be like everybody else. They're different. They're set apart. They're sanctified by God. So the same thing here is that in today, if we align our hearts, our thoughts, and our actions with God's word, God himself will remove the desire for the world that is in us. And yes, the desire for the world is in us. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is in us. For some reason, we always want more. We want it better. We always want more, always try. And that's what we're looking for in the world. Where we should be looking is we want to have a better relationship with Christ. A better relationship. So the closer we have a relationship with God through his son Jesus Christ, the less we will have of the world. And sooner or later, all of the desires of the world will be